many of us contribute time, money, and resources to charitable actions. Our devotion to alleviating issues such as poverty is done so with the purest of intentions, but we have actually unwittingly perpetuated poverty and suffering in the developing world. My goal is to educate you on the full impact of your charitable actions and the effect that it has on the developing world. Our journey starts in Zambia, a nation in sub-Saharan Africa with a vibrant culture, rapid industrialization, gorgeous skies, and a wonderful citizenship that is deserving of utmost respect. But it is also a nation of dire poverty, joblessness, and sickness that stems from a long history of oppressive European colonizers that extends into neo-colonization today. Western nations, as represented by the International Monetary Fund or the World Bank, encourage free trade, but this has led to policies that allow for the unrestricted acceptance of donated clothing. Last summer, I was exposed to the poverty of countless children when I visited Zambia while volunteering with Family Legacy, an organization that builds and runs schools for orphaned and at-risk children in the slums of Lusaka, the capital of Zambia. While there, I met a little orphaned girl wearing fake Chanel shoes, a representation of the pervasive hand of Western goods and the destruction of native culture. An ironic start to my exposure to the issue of donated clothing in the developing world. Later in the trip, we passed by massive crates full of clothes. These clothes, known as salula, are donated clothes that are dumped in Zambia by Western nations. These clothes, I soon learned, are actually extremely harmful to the Zambian economy. This massive availability of cheap clothing, often 5 to 10% of a normal cost, destroys the potential of young or native industries to be price competitive. There are undeniable benefits to salula. According to Robin Kurnow and Teo Kermalitis, the value of secondhand clothing trade is about $3 billion, although estimates from the BBC are slightly higher. According to the World Trade Organization, however, in 2016, $106 billion was spent on clothing exports in China alone. This comparison displays how the immense benefits of salula are deceptive, as economic growth and jobs created by a flourishing textile industry can bring indispensable benefits to a national economy, leading the Zambian economy to be severely stunted by this lack of industrial development. The clothes are also a resource for those who would otherwise be unable to afford such clothing, but improved economic conditions would decrease poverty, negating a need for such clothes in the first place. This phenomenon is not limited to my experience in Zambia and extends to countless African nations. Before policies allowing for the acceptance of donated clothing in Zambia, or in Nigeria, according to Teresa Namdu, the number of textile workers in Nigeria numbered 350,000. But after the implementation of policies that restricted the acceptance of, that restricted industrial protections, this number declined to 30,000. These jobs are crucial to a nation's vitality, as factory incomes increase consumer purchasing power, which increases the demand for such goods and creates jobs to produce such goods. Conversely, employment decline marks the significant destructive potential of donated clothing. In order to allow these developing nations to thrive, we must, as individuals, ensure that companies or charities donate locally, as nonprofits like Goodwill often sell unsold clothing for pennies on the global secondhand clothing trade. Additionally, upcycling clothes would minimize waste while avoiding harming developing nations. We must also develop actions, we also must demand action on the part of private companies to be responsible for all phases of their product's effects. Numerous companies are moving in the right direction, including Madewell, an organization that offers incentives to return used jeans to be manufactured into clothing or house insulation for low-income communities. As a nation as a whole, we American diplomats and economic advisors must encourage developing nation governments to enact policies that limit the unregulated importation of secondhand clothing for the purpose of better protecting native industries. The havoc created by careless yet well-intentioned acts of charity by developing nations may have harmed many African nations, but not beyond repair. Thank you.